Welcome back to the Explorer's Guide to Western Australia. In episodes 1 to 3, we looked at places to visit in and around the capital city of Perth, and at places that would make a good day trip. In this episode, we're going to head out to areas much further away from Perth and look at trips that could take several days at the very least. Because of the distances involved, I'm going to assume that you have a rental vehicle of some sort and will be staying in accommodation along the way. First, and perhaps foremost, is the Margaret River area. There are some very good reasons that this is the premier tourist destination in Western Australia. Located about 300 kilometres from Perth, the Margaret River area is easily accessible by car. And of course, if you don't have a rental car, there are tour companies that offer guided tours. There is plenty of natural beauty, from long sandy beaches and clear blue water to karri forests, rivers, streams, and there are also so many man-made attractions that it's impossible to list them all, even in a very long video. The Margaret River area effectively covers the land between Busselton in the north and Augusta in the south. Starting in Busselton, you'll find the longest timber pile jetty in the southern hemisphere. You can catch the jetty train along to the underwater observatory at the end, or if you're feeling energetic, you can walk. It's well worth going down to have a look at the underwater observatory, especially on clear days, as you will see a lot of the marine life that lives around the pylons of the jetty. Busselton is situated on Geograph Bay, and there are plenty of lovely beaches to enjoy. At the southern end, the coastline changes to a series of bays and then on to limestone cliffs. There's a beautiful scenic drive along the coast here at a place called Meelup. You can then drive to the top of Cape Naturalist to the lighthouse. Visitors are welcome on the lighthouse grounds. There's a cafe, and you can even take a tour inside the lighthouse itself. Along the way, you might decide to stop and have a swim at Eagle or Bunker Bay. On a scorching hot summer day, this experience is something you won't forget in a hurry. From the Cape, you follow Caves Road down to many other attractions, including Canal Rocks and Gracetown. Canal Rocks is a very picturesque spot and is very popular with photographers. At Gracetown, you will occasionally see surfers out beyond the breakers, waiting for the right wave to come in. From here, you can head inland, away from the coast and into the heart of wine country. Although this area is well known for wine, there are also breweries making beer, there's a chocolate factory, olive oil products, ice cream factories, cheese factories, a deer farm, distilleries, and so much more to explore. The town of Quarramup, locally known as Cowtown, is really the centre of much of this activity, and there's enough to see and do here to keep you busy for at least a week. When the surf is up, it's time to head down to one of the local surf breaks and watch the local surfers carving up the waves. As beautiful as this area is, you will need to be prepared to have your wallet lightened considerably, because prices here are quite high. In fact, Margaret River is often called Markup River because of the high prices. It's completely impossible in a short video like this to list everything to see and do here. But there are a few things we think you might like to check out while you're in the area. You can stop for a picnic lunch at the Barrett Street Weir in Margaret River, and if the weather is nice and warm, you can have a swim here too. If you're there in the cooler months, especially if there's been a bit of rainfall, go and see the Kevel Road waterfall. Unfortunately, when we visited, there wasn't really that much water flowing over, so it's not anywhere near as spectacular as it would be after a good period of rain. Visit Rotary Park in Margaret River. Hire a bike and ride through the bush here. Explore the coastline at Conto. This is a very spectacular area, but you will need a vehicle capable of going on unsealed roads and one that doesn't mind too many bumps, because the roads here are pretty rough. Go down to one of the Margaret River tourist caves, especially Jewel and Lake Cave. They are very, very beautiful places, although you will need a bit of fitness if you're going down to have a look at Lake Cave. It's a long way down those steps. Drive through the Borenup Forest and visit the Borenup Gallery. The gallery houses a wonderful collection of art, sculptures and furniture for sale. Go down to Hamlin Bay and say hello to the friendly stingrays. Keep in mind though that they are wild animals and you shouldn't be taking any liberties with them. The stingrays at Hamlin Bay are fully protected these days. Head down to Augusta. Go down to a place called Colour Patch, grab some fish and chips and sit under the shady trees right next to the water. This is one of our absolute favourite places to sit and just relax. Head along the coast from here and visit Cape Leeuwin Lighthouse. Like the lighthouse at Cape Naturalist, you can also take tours here. This is a much taller lighthouse and it's very interesting to see the insides. Once you're at the top, you can go out and take some pictures. You'd get a really good view of the Cape from here. Nearby is Quarry Bay, where you can check out what we call the outdoor cave. Just walk along the beach and have a look. It's off to the right-hand side. Quite an unusual feature, and one we think you'll enjoy having a look at. If you want to find out this area in much more detail, we have a full series on it called The Magic of Margaret River. I'll put a link to it below the video. We now head from the southwest through the forests of the south to Walpole and the Treetop Walk. This is a good place to stop and have a walk before continuing your journey to our next destination, Albany. Albany was the first place formerly settled by Europeans in Western Australia, and it's another area where you could easily spend a week or two exploring all it has to offer. One of the major tourist attractions here is Torndirrup National Park. The park is located on a stunning piece of coastline and has many different features to explore. The best known are probably the Gap and the Natural Bridge, but there's also Jimmy Newell's Harbour, Salmon Holes and the Blowholes. There are a number of walking trails in the park with varying levels of difficulty. Care should always be taken when walking. Make sure you're equipped for the prevailing weather and carry some water with you on the longer walks. Taking a personal locator beacon with you when bushwalking is a good idea. And remember, WA is home to a number of venomous snakes, so a snakebite kit is another useful item to take along. One attraction we highly recommend is the old whaling station at Frenchman Bay. This has been turned into a very informative museum that looks at the history of whaling in the area and has a number of interesting additions. You could easily spend 2 or 3 hours wandering around. Next, drive back through Albany and go up to Princess Royal Fortress. This includes the Anzac Centre, and there are all sorts of old fortifications to explore. From here, keep going around the coast and you will get to views out over King George Sound. From the car park, you might glimpse some old buildings that can be reached by walk trails running away to your right. There is a ruin of an old cottage, but hidden away out of sight are more old World War II fortifications, and these are worth the effort to find. Having a copy of Google Earth on your phone will make getting to these places a whole lot easier. From there, follow the road round to Middleton Beach and keep going northeast along Golf Links Road. You will eventually reach Emu Point. This is a lovely area to stop and have lunch, and maybe even a swim if the weather is sunny and warm. While you're still in the town area, take the time to visit Strawberry Hill Farm. This is a wonderfully preserved historic farm that dates from the early days of settlement. Another attraction fairly close to town are the chainsaw sculptures. This is something very, very unusual, and the sculptures themselves are stunning. You can drive into the property and there is a donation box for you to leave something to show your appreciation. For a nice day's drive from Albany, head out to Two People's Bay. The coastal scenery here is unbelievable, and again, there are nice places to swim if the weather is warm. Longer drives will take you inland to the Parongarups and to the Stirling Range. These are best visited during wildflower season. Bluff Knoll is a popular place for those with a good level of fitness to go for a hike. But be aware, there are sudden weather changes here, so you must go prepared. Take water with you, take appropriate clothing, and especially on this walk, it is a very good idea to have a PLB. Albany is an amazing destination. We can't even begin to cover all the attractions around here. There are all sorts of free campsites, there are national park campsites, so there are plenty of places for those with motorhomes to stay and enjoy. From Albany, we continue heading east to the Esperance area, on what arguably is the most beautiful beaches in Australia. The Esperance region is most famous for its stunning coastline, where steep granite cliffs plunge down into clear blue waters, where the beaches are so white they almost hurt your eyes to look at in the sunlight, and where lakes turn bright pink at certain times of the year. Close to town, you'll find the Great Ocean Drive. Twilight Beach Road runs along the coast and gives you excellent views of the spectacular scenery and the offshore islands. It's hard to find the appropriate superlatives to describe this section of coast, but you can be sure you won't be disappointed. Twilight Beach Road runs along to 11 Mile Lagoon and then turns inland, becoming 11 Mile Beach Road before looping back towards the town and passing Pink Lake. Esperance town is actually quite small, but you'll find pretty much everything you need. It's the surrounding coast though that's the real attraction here. Fisheries Road leads you east out of town, but before you go too far, take the turn off to Bandy Creek Harbour. This is a great spot to stop and have lunch before you get any further out of town. There's also a turn-off called Wiley Bay Road that'll lead you to another very pretty area, and you'll get just a hint here of what awaits you further to the east. When the tides are right, it's possible, with a four-wheel drive, to go right along the beach from here to your next destination, Cape Le Grand. Most people will have to turn around though and take the bitumen back to Fisheries Road and get to the Cape using the black stuff, i.e. the bitumen. The drive is about 60 kilometres long. Along the way, you'll pass Esperance Stonehenge. This is a replica of what the original structure in England would have looked like when it was first constructed. It's a good spot to break your journey, get out, stretch your legs, and perhaps have a drink or snack before continuing the drive. Approaching Cape Le Grand, you will first see Frenchman's Peak. and if you have the time and the energy, a trail leads up to the top to an unusual cave-like structure. The trail up is listed grade 5, so it isn't something for the unfit or the unprepared. If you follow the road straight, you'll come to Legrand Beach. This is the beach that leads all the way back to Wylie Bay near Esperance. It's a lovely wide sandy beach, but driving on it in a four-wheel drive must only be attempted by those with experience and under the right tidal conditions. On the way to Legrand Beach, you will have passed a turn-off that leads to the other attractions at the Cape. Hellfire Bay, Thistle Cove, Lucky Bay, and further east, Rossiter Bay all await you. If you're travelling in a motorhome, there are campsites here, but you'll be best advised to book before you leave Esperance because the area is very popular. At Lucky Bay, keep an eye out for the local kangaroos. They seem to enjoy the beach here almost as much as the visitors do. If you head further east than Cape Legrand, then there's yet more beautiful scenery to find, with one of the more accessible places being the Duke of Orleans Bay. If you want to stay out in that area, there's even a caravan park there. But once you go further east, you need to be more self-sufficient, and generally you'll need a four-wheel drive. Remember that when you head into more remote locations, it's always a good idea to let someone know where you're heading and when you expect to return. Many tracks have very little traffic, and getting help in an emergency can be difficult. Having reliable communications equipment is essential in more remote locations. Don't rely on your mobile phone. In the next episode, we'll travel inland, heading north from Esperance to Kalgoorlie and the goldfields.